So welcome to today's sustainability seminar. My name is Nancy Holmes, as many of you know. I'm the assistant director here at ISTC and seminar organizer along with Beth Michalski. We have the schedule and flyers for our last two seminars of the year coming up. Those will be April 28th and May 3rd. We have that information out on the conference room table outside this door, and then for those listening online, we have that information on our website. And in case you can not attend here in person for the seminars, we do show them live, and then we also archive them on our website. So to begin, I'd like to ask everyone to silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And for this seminar, we've been having a little audio difficulty here, but so we will take questions from the audience during the presentation. If you have any, Molly will repeat those so that we can record those online. And for those viewing online, we will have you type in your questions at any time, and then we'll take those questions at the end. So we're very pleased today to welcome as our speaker Ms. Molly Lunn, who's the Deputy Director of the Office of Energy and Recycling at the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. She's been at DCEO for about a year and a half. The Office of Energy and Recycling supports the economic development and job creation through a variety of programs and services in the areas of energy efficiency, renewable energy, recycling, and alternative transportation. Molly previously worked at the U.S. Department of Energy. She came there as a Presidential Management Fellow. In addition to the technical assistance work she did, she supported their communications and tribal efforts for DEO's weatherization and intergovernmental programs. Prior to DOE, Molly was with the Department of Housing and Urban Development's Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control. She also has previous experience at the Sustainable South Bronx, DLA Piper LLP, and the U.S. Public Interest Research Group. She received her Master's of Public Administration in Environmental Science and Policy from Columbia University. So with that, please join me in welcoming Molly for her presentation.
Okay, thank you guys. I'm putting on a stopwatch because sometimes I can drone on a little long. So hopefully I won't be too boring, but I really do appreciate the invite here today. I'm really excited to be in Champaign. I was saying the last time I was here, I was in college visiting friends. So slightly different kind of trip. This should be a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed the meeting so far this morning with the staff from the ISTC, and look forward to learning more about the organization today. So what I thought I would talk about today is sort of the work that we do as the Office of the Office of Energy and Recycling, and the context we do that work in. How are we working to grow Illinois' clean economy? And then also, what are we thinking about in terms of our work in the future, and how we can do that work with ISTC and the University of Illinois. I think a lot of times, and you all know this, but frankly a lot of people that I talk to, whether it's within government or outside of government, wonder, why is the Office of Energy and Recycling within the Department of Commerce? What is going on here? What is that link? And I always say that energy and environment are actually really critical to a state's economy, particularly to Illinois. There's the obvious connection to jobs. All of our jobs are connected to energy and recycling and the environment, but also lots of blue-collar and white-collar jobs. And I'm not sure how many of you have looked at the most recent survey that the Clean Energy Trust helped sponsor of just energy jobs, clean energy jobs in Illinois. But that's already over 104,000 jobs within the state, and that number has grown significantly each year. It grew, I believe, by 9% last year, which is really pretty substantial for growth in the job sector. But in addition, there's also all the economic development impacts. So the key one is the avoided costs that we can reap through good practices with energy and materials. So of course, low and stable energy prices like the ones we have here in Illinois are key. They help us attract and retain businesses, but also energy efficiency, the dollars we don't spend on energy are things that can be invested into manufacturing or at home into buying other goods, or in the public sector into other programs and services. A healthy environment and energy can also help with marketing of a state. It's the reputation and property values. And then, of course, there are the indirect impacts of the environmental and energy choices we make. So, for example, obviously the energy choices we make have a significant impact on climate change, and climate change will have significant impacts from an economic perspective on the state of Illinois. So, why are we interested in particular in growing the state's clean energy economy? I do want to make it clear the administration strongly believes that the state's energy mix will continue to rely on a mix of energy sources. People may have heard, the popular saying, all of the above strategy. And that includes fossil energy, it includes nuclear, but also clean energy. And we really see in our office the opportunity for growth in clean energy here in Illinois. This little diagram here just shows, it's taken from a study that was done of all utility executives across the U.S., and they were asked, where are you going to be investing in the next, over the next 20 years? And you'll see that, of course, natural gas is very popular given the natural gas prices, but wind and solar are right up there. And that's really, I think, a bellwether for where things are heading nationally and where Illinois could be thinking about moving in the future. And that's only going to increase with the new and emerging federal standards we see. And we really believe that we have regional competitive advantages in this space, so that we should be a leader. We also believe that it's important to grow the state's recycling industry. Recycling materials creates 6 to 10 times as many jobs as just landfilling those materials. A recent economic impact study we did of recycling quantified, again, a significant number of jobs in Illinois, as well as significant impacts on payroll, gross receipts, and local taxes. And while we're doing a very good job of growing that industry, we've already doubled our diversion rate in the last 7 years in Illinois. There is still a significant opportunity, so over $360 million worth of commodities that are going into landfills each year. Okay, so that's sort of the big picture view of what's going on in Illinois and what the opportunities we think there are for growing the clean economy. So what does my office do? And how do we operate within the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity? So how many of you all have actually worked with the Office of Energy and Recycling before? Okay. Okay, so you're somewhat familiar. I will try not to, give you too much stuff that you already know. And I should have said at the beginning, if you have questions, feel free to shout them out. Again, I want this to be as interactive as possible. But for those of you who aren't familiar, the department is the state's lead agency for economic development efforts. Our office is just one of several within the department, all focused on different aspects of the economy. So that includes our sister agencies who also work on energy, such as energy assistance, and community development to some extent plays a role in energy as well. And collectively, our big picture mission is to create and retain jobs through a wide range of activities. Here in Illinois, we obviously have a particular context for our work, and I think it goes without saying that we face some pretty significant economic challenges right now. It's the headlines of the state's budget crisis that I think are the most at the forefront of everyone's minds. But I think what's really troubling are some of the ripple effects from the budget crisis that we're facing. So Last year we were rated 48th in terms of business climate in the U.S. We got an F for small business friendliness. For the last 6 years, we've been 40th in job creation, and especially in a university town like this, the state's population has been declining since 2003, and we lose more than 6,000 graduates each year. So it's really critical for us now to focus on the economy and focus on creating a climate for economic growth. And our office is trying to stay laser focused on that. So our office administers a range of clean energy and solid waste management programs and policy initiatives with the goal of stimulating economic development and creating jobs while producing a cleaner, more secure energy future. All of the programs are self-supported, so they're not funded through general revenue funding. In FY15, our revenue was around $100 million. Unfortunately, with the budget crisis, we really don't have a lot of that money right now, but in an average year, we do over 1,400 grants and rebates, which relative to other offices is really quite large. We're the state's designated state energy office, so every state has a state energy office, and they all sit in slightly different places, but quite a number of them now are within a state's Department of Commerce or something along those lines. And our key partner agencies are the IEPA, the ICC, and the IPA. So what is our role? What kinds of activities does our office do? I think they can mostly be divided into three main sort of areas. We've got incentives, technical assistance and marketing, and planning and policy. And so incentives are what we're really known for. We do a lot of grants and rebates, as I mentioned before. Energy efficiency is the biggest piece of the pie. We have a lot of funding that comes from ratepayer dollars or from utilities. And we administer a lot of that with the help of the University of Illinois, CDAC. We also run grant and rebate programs for renewable energy, sustainable transportation, and recycling. And then each program has slightly different eligibility requirements, but overall we serve Illinois residents, including low-income customers, Illinois businesses, and the public sector. In terms of technical assistance and marketing, we have formal programs for energy efficiency. Again, those are temporarily on hold, but we do that in large partnership with the University of Illinois and other universities. We do provide some support in additional areas, and that's one thing I'll talk a little bit more in terms of our vision for the future. And then a lot of planning and policy are things that we're moving into. So there's some work that we've been doing the last couple of years that's focused around energy assurance planning. We have Rajiv here right now today. He's the lead for that work. Energy assurance planning, again, it's something all states do. It's sort of the emergency plan for energy. But then we also are doing more long-term planning for energy. We're working on something now called an Illinois Energy Roadmap. I'll talk just a little bit about that. And then our final role is working with the legislature to review, come up with proposals, do reviews, and complete directives. So where are we thinking we want to go from here? Again, really, our focus is growing the state's economy by leading the Midwest and the nation as a clean energy and environmental leader. That's really where we want to be. And how do we want to do that? We want to make our existing programs better. We really want to focus on managing for results. I know that sounds a little cliche, but particularly for our programs, that's really key. The energy efficiency programs, we are supposed to be meeting very specific energy savings targets, and we haven't always been able to do that. And so we really want to focus on accomplishing those goals. We want to get a bigger bang for the state's buck. So we've been looking at how can we take some of the dollars that we've been using for grant programs and leveraging them with private investment through finance. So we did a gap analysis of different areas within the state's market that we thought there were gaps in financing, and now we're starting to do some pilots there around, mostly focused on the energy side. And then finally, something our office has done sort of on and off over the years is working with businesses. So we really, especially given the new administration's focus on supporting the private sector and businesses, we want to make sure our office is doing as much as we can to support and attract businesses to Illinois by better marketing our resources and planning for our long-term energy future, giving people certainty about what's going on from an energy and environmental perspective. So two things up here I'll just touch on. First, we want to develop a more formal business outreach strategy for non-energy and energy companies. So what I mean by that is for energy companies, for clean tech companies really writ large, we want to do a better job of helping them connect to the resources that the department has beyond our office. So we have a lot of relationships with companies like through the Clean Energy Trust, other small startup firms, and we want to make sure they know how to tap into things from our business development office. So that's one role we want to play. Then we also want to help the traditional non-energy companies that are operating here in Illinois understand the resources that are out there to help them manage their energy and manage their use of materials. And I think that's really an opportunity for us to work with you all to make sure that they're getting the support from resources that exist through things like your technical assistance program. So that's a strategy we haven't developed yet. It's just an idea. It's a kernel. So we're going to be working on that. And it's the idea is to have it be coordinated with something which you all may have heard about being announced. It's the new Illinois Economic Development Corporation. This is going to be the public-private partnership arm of the economic development work that Illinois does. So I don't know, have folks heard about this at all? Okay, so a couple months ago, the governor announced that through an executive order, he was creating this corporation. It's modeled after a lot of other states who have a public-private arm to their economic development work. Ohio has this, Indiana has one, Florida has one, a number of other states, particularly our neighbor states. And essentially, certain functions of the department will move into this public-private entity. That'll include things like our business development office, our trade and investment office. Energy will stay within the department, but we want to work with them more closely. And what the role that that corporation is really going to play is trying to be the outward face to the private sector, and so they will help us get companies the support they need, but as I said, we're going to need to develop the strategy with them. Finally, as I mentioned, we're developing a long-term strategy for energy, particularly clean energy here in Illinois, and this is our Illinois Energy Roadmap. So if I'm doing okay on time, which I think I am, I'm going to talk just a little bit about this because this is something I'm very excited about and hope you will be as well. So about a year and a half ago, we received an award from the U.S. Department of Energy to develop a clean energy roadmap. It was specifically supposed to be focused on renewables and efficiency. So, you know, for folks who are thinking, is the state strategy only going to be, energy strategy only going to include clean energy? The answer is no. This is the first bite at the apple. The administration is interested in developing a long-term energy plan for all kinds of energy. But this is what we have support and funding to do now, and it's a good sort of place to start. So we started the project last January. Of course, you guys know what also happened last January. We had a transition. So the project got off to a somewhat slow start, but we're in full swing now. And we are working with the Galvin Center at IIT, the Energy Resources Center at UIC, and the National Association of State Energy Officials, and that's really to help us look at what other states are doing and what we can learn from them. And let's see, okay. The context for all this is, as I'm sure a lot of you know, Illinois has not undertaken an integrated energy planning process in over 2 decades. You know, we have a deregulated market structure, and so that means that the state has established really a series of lots of separate energy policies. We have a renewable energy policy, an energy efficiency policy, different emission standards, and it's this patchwork, and they don't necessarily all work well together. And on top of that, we have the responsibilities for energy broken up across many different agencies and authorities. So we have IEPA, we have the Department of Commerce, we have the ICC, we have the Pollution Control Board, and it's frankly a little bit of a mess. So, and we have 2 different regional transmission organizations. So it makes things complicated here. And so we don't have a cohesive approach to meeting our state goals, and we don't have a cohesive approach to meeting pending federal goals. Originally, this project was in part intended to help us think through potential compliance pathways for the Clean Power Plan. Obviously, I'm guessing most of you guys are pretty familiar with the Clean Power Plan. Obviously, that's stayed for right now. We don't know what's going to happen there, but we think that the work that we're doing through this project will eventually be able to help support the state if a rule like the Clean Power Plan or something similar comes along. So the vision of the project is to look at what are the existing policies we have on the books. You know, what is that EERS? What is that RPS? And what were the policy goals within those laws? And how are we doing in terms of meeting them? Are we meeting them right now? Are we meeting the intent of those laws? And then what are the potential opportunities for changing those laws or maybe improving them? Or are we doing okay? So that's really the goal. We want to bring stakeholders together to do that as a whole. We don't want to do it just on our own. And the stakeholders include both our fellow agencies who work in the energy space. So it's that network of agencies I mentioned before, IEPA, the ICC, the IPA, the Pollution Control Board, and the Governor's Office. And then stakeholders from across the state. So this just lays out, I know it's a lot of words on a slide, but this tries to lay out what are the objectives, what's the approach we're taking, and what outcomes are we expecting. So we've already completed the first 2, so we wanted a structure to facilitate ongoing engagement across the state agencies I mentioned. And so we convened folks starting last June and formed an advisory group. So we meet at the most senior level really only quarterly, so that's folks like Director Bonnet, Director McCarthy, Acting Director McCarthy, sort of that level. And then at the staff level, we're meeting pretty frequently. When we were doing our initial baseline modeling, for example, we were meeting just about every other week to talk through modeling assumptions. So once we got that advisory group going, and the advisory group really sort of weighs in at key intervals, we established the baseline. So that question of how are we doing towards meeting our existing goals. And we did that through modeling. We're using a modeling tool that IIT developed called MARCI. It's a dispatch model, and it models the whole Eastern Interconnect because we acknowledge, obviously, that Illinois doesn't operate in a vacuum. We operate in a large energy market. And we published something called the Goal Status Report. That was published in February, and that laid out how we think we will be doing towards meeting our goals out through 2030 under a range of different scenarios. We did have to make some assumptions, and again, those were sort of, got to those assumptions based on a lot of discussion internally as well as some stakeholder engagement. And now we are completing our stakeholder engagement to get recommendations about what changes we make with regards to our policy. So we had 2 stakeholder meetings in March, one in Springfield, one in Chicago, and we also had a written comment process. And we received a lot of comments, a lot of really substantive comments, and we're going through those now, and we'll be discussing them with the advisory board and then summarizing them in a policy review report. And then the last step will be the actual roadmap. So based on the recommendations that we got for policy, we're then going to run the models again. We're going to pick a couple of the recommendations that we're interested in and run modeling scenarios of those, and then determine what changes we actually want to make. So my goal is to have all that done by the end of the calendar year. So, you know, knock on wood. But the idea is the actions that will be identified in this roadmap, some of them will be things that we can take administratively, changes we can make to existing programs, changes we can make to the way that laws are enforced or rules are enforced. But some of them will likely require legislative action. So this will help us lay out an agenda for the future. So as I mentioned, we just wrapped up the stakeholder engagement. At the bottom here is the link to our website. It's just a Google site, but it does have the goal status report itself. And it's a long report, but it has a nice executive summary if you don't want to go too far in. And it also has all the comments that we received. So you can take a look and see the comments if you're interested. As I mentioned, next steps, we're going through the comments now. Oh, should have mentioned, I always forgot this. We're also doing, associated with this, economic impact modeling. My director would knock me on the head for forgetting that again. This was something that was not originally intended with the project, so it's a little further behind. But the idea is, okay, this, you know, the modeling we did is focused on energy. It's focused on, do we have enough transmission? It's focused on emissions. It is focused, you do get electricity prices, but then it doesn't necessarily get you things like what are the impacts going to be on jobs, what are the impacts, the indirect economic impacts going to be. So U of I is actually doing that modeling for, or the economic impact modeling for us, and we expect that to be done within the next month as well. And then as I said, then we'll do the policy review report, the policy scenarios, and the roadmap. Okay, so how can we work with you all? This is really what I hope we have a little bit of time. Yes, good. We can have a little bit of time to talk about. I was working on this yesterday, and it's really, this is just sort of my initial thoughts. But on the left-hand side, I laid out sort of our department goals, you know, making our existing programs better, getting a bigger bang for the state's buck, and supporting and attracting businesses. And on the right-hand side, I started to think through some of the initiatives I was familiar with that you all did, that ISTC had, but I don't know everything, and I don't know exactly, you know, I'm sure there are other things out there we could be partnering with. And I especially after I talked with your director, I was thinking that maybe I should have done this more in your framework, the technical assistance, the applied R&D and the outreach, and then try to lay them over together. But here are some ideas. So in terms of making our existing programs better, we have a number of biofuels programs. They're sort of a patchwork. A lot of it comes from legislation, and I think we could do a lot better about making sure the programs that we're offering are actually what are needed in the marketplace. So, you know, working with your team who does biofuels work and talking through what are the real opportunities for us to be impactful as a state. So, very specifically, we have funding for something called Next Gen Biofuels. Originally, that was the way the written is like 3 sentences, and it says you can spend X amount of money to develop new or retrofit existing biorefineries. And I think it basically just says make them more efficient. It laid out like 2 or 3 things. But again, that was written, you know, almost 10 years ago now. And so because it's so broad, we can tailor that solicitation to lots of things. And so I think it would be really helpful to have input from an organization like ISTC to say, okay, what's the latest cutting edge? You know, should we be focusing only on drop-in biofuels? Should we be focusing on algal fuels? You know, what makes sense? Same goes for some of our other programs. I was thinking, I already talked this morning with your technical assistance folks. You know, we administer the state's self-direct energy efficiency program with large industrial customers. I really think if we could connect those customers with your technical assistance program, that they would be getting a lot more support than they're getting right now. So that's one opportunity. I think the last, oh I know, water. Under the Energy Efficiency Portfolio Standards programs, the EAPS programs we run, we offer an incentive specifically for water treatment plants. So I know you all have been doing some work in the water space. Could we learn from the work you've done there and possibly leverage that? So those are the kinds of things that I was thinking about in terms of making our existing programs better. In terms of supporting and attracting Illinois businesses, again, I think that's where we really have a lot of opportunity. I think, you know, there's so much that you guys are doing, whether it's the TAP work, the P3 work, the Office Challenge, the Governor's Awards. All of those are things that we would love to help market better. It sounds like you guys do a pretty good job, but you know, our office and our department talks to companies every day, and lots of them. And so I would love to see if we can help market these a little better, and also if we can, you know, potentially help support your work. And then finally, you know, we for some of our efforts where we are supposed to be providing technical assistance and maybe aren't as much as we should, are there, you know, formal partnerships, things we could learn from you all in that space? So those were just my ideas. But I would love to hear if you guys have any ideas, programs I'm missing, things that I'm missing, or any questions. I sort of ran through a lot there. Sorry.
Okay, well, thanks, Molly.
Yeah.
You can stay up for the questions. So do we have some questions here from the audience? And then if you want to just repeat them.
Okay, great. Well, I thought it was a very exciting presentation, so thank you. On your opening slide on kind of the economic logic of doing clean energy and energy efficiency, I was just looking for, in terms of job categories, you know, solar installer seems to be a hot area now, and you may think about adding that. And also one other area of benefit is in terms of health costs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good one, yes.
Thank you. Nobody said that for years.
Well, and that goes a little bit to what I was saying on indirect impacts, but I always forget to articulate that. People don't necessarily make those connections, so that's great. Thank you.
And then on the clean energy roadmap that you're working on, or the LI energy roadmap, does it include vehicles and incentives you might be offering to try to get vehicles off of petroleum fuels?
Great question. So the way that the way the project was set up was that it was focused specifically on electricity, not on transportation, so our focus is really not on the transportation work, but our office offers both the, you know, we have biofuels work, we have, you know, sort of broader alt fuels work, and that includes EVs. And the same way that we're trying to figure out sort of what's the strategy on biofuels, I would love your thoughts, you know, ISP's thoughts on our strategy with electric vehicles. We have a couple existing funds, and again, they're pretty flexible in terms of how we can use them. They have historically been used for rebates for charging at homes and businesses, and a couple larger scale grants to businesses, battery businesses that are developing here in Illinois. And the charging vehicle thing is very popular, but we've been talking about, you know, does it really make sense that we're giving individuals cash to do charging stations at their homes? Maybe we should be doing this in more public places where everyone could use them, or we've gotten suggestions about doing them along routes like I-80 or, you know, something like that. So that's, if you have ideas, we would love to get your thoughts.
Just, you know, are you incorporating EVs into your model to meet
yes.
the electric sector and possibility of storage?
Definitely. We have been talking about the potential role that EV demand is going to have, and I think that did go into the baseline modeling. And on storage, that was something that was left out of the baseline modeling, but we specifically asked for comments on storage.
I'm Ollie. Well, obviously I'm very excited to see that slide up there. I agree completely. But I'm going to add something to that blank box.
Yes.
That's something to think about. Getting a bigger bang for the state's dollars. And in the sense of the following, I think one of the things we had a lot of experience with is, and the best way to describe it is, I know a year or so ago we had the USDA and we also had a group from DCEO, I think it was the red team, and done a lot of stuff with them. And what was very intriguing is, I want to point out in one of these programs, it was the low interest loan program, which you would think would be very exciting because we had you all in, we had the USDA in, there was an ability to kind of stack these loans together, and it seemed to be like, oh wow, this is great. But then what we found was we went out and we talked with municipalities, and we talked with the private sector was, well, you know, guess what? We're not going to use it, and they started to list a whole series of items, which was really frustrating and kind of a bummer because you think, wow, this will have a great impact. But then there were some very logical reasons why that wasn't going to work in terms of these low interest loan programs. So I think that's an area as well, and we have some dialogues. We would welcome the opportunity to do that because since we're out in the environment and talking with people, and we're very interested in these large capital projects, we think it makes a lot of sense for the state. Sometimes there just isn't that alignment.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a mismatching of pieces where you say, wow, this would be great, but then at the end of the day, no one takes up the loan because they say, here's these factors that just prevent me from taking the loan.
Absolutely.
So, and it's funny because it wasn't the rate. The rate was attractive, but it was like, well, no, here's 6 reasons why we can't take the loan. It was like, gosh, that's frustrating, isn't it? So
yeah. No, thank you. I didn't know that you guys were doing that kind of work. So that's absolutely the kind of help we could use.
I have 3 quick questions.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Only one of them, or you can ignore all of them. So,
Okay.
I know that the current administration in Springfield is not very coal friendly for good reason, because coal is an air fuel, no doubt about it. However, if one can convert the $50 per ton air fuel, which is coal, to a $2,000 per ton byproduct that has environmental usage, I just wonder if you have any comments on that. Question number 2. Years ago, maybe when you were in high school, the state has had an idea of 2020, that by the year of 20, we had 20% of our energy production from renewable. What's the status of it? Number 3, climate change is real, but most of the modeling work that I have done, especially all the stuff at the Paris conference, is that if you like to really limit ourselves to the 2-degree rise by the end of this century, we have to have a negative footprint, carbon footprint. What does that mean? That means that at some point in this century, we have to capture and store some carbon. Comments on that?
Okay, so there were, I'm supposed to repeat. So there were 3 questions. One is converting and capturing. Yes. Yeah.
Minimal environmental impacts, but maybe that material that has environmental usage.
Okay.
But carbon active.
Okay. Basically, how to convert coal so that we can actually.
But we don't have to do it.
Right. To how the administration feels about it. The second question was the 2020 renewables, 20% renewable fuels or renewable power by 2020. And the third question was negative carbon footprint. Okay, so on the use of coal in a less environmentally
not as a source of fuel.
Right.
But the fuel part is negative. You all know.
So I will be totally upfront. How I showed the slide with the different offices the department has. There has historically been a separate office for coal, not our office. And I am not an expert in coal or coal technologies.
But that office is gone.
Well, it's not funded right now. And I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but they can't. It's in part up to the legislature whether or not it gets funded, right? They can't unilaterally make that choice on their own. But I will say I think the administration understands that we have an amazing resource of coal, and that we should try, if we can, to figure out a way to use it responsibly and economically, because the industry plays a big role in Illinois. So is that fair? I am not the expert though.
Well, I guess the point is that coal is a daily fuel. I have so many meetings with environmentalists which are against coal, and I agree with people. However, this is what I tell people. Right now, you can buy a combustion engine car in Japan for Toyota, and the intake air is dirtier than exhaust air. So right now, from a science and engineering standpoint, you can actually build a power plant, a hydrocarbon-based power plant, and the intake water and air is dirtier than exhaust. So you can produce the energy and clean the water and air, air filtration. So we are not in 1950s or 60s or even 1990s. I mean, there are so many nanotechnology and all of these technologies are coming through. There's a lot that people can do with developing new energy technologies. So,
I definitely don't disagree with you there. There are absolutely new technologies we can use. I think the fundamental question is, are they going to be economically competitive in the market? And if they are, great. And if what you're suggesting is maybe they need support to get to that point, that's something we should be talking about, certainly.
Why don't we go on to his second question?
Yes.
2020, then we'll move on.
Okay. Okay. The second question about the 2020 is that's exactly the kind of thing we're looking at with the roadmap. And this is where we get at the question of intent versus meeting the letter of the law. We are meeting the letter of the law because we are complying with our renewable portfolio standard by buying RECs, renewable energy credits. We get most of our renewable energy credits from sources that are out of the state. And so the question is, are we meeting the intent of the law in that part of the intent was to grow the renewable industry in Illinois? And so that's a question that we're trying to answer with this exercise. That there are some advocates out there who are suggesting that we need to fix our renewable portfolio standard as well as increase it. They want it 30% by 2030. And that is one of the policy recommendations. And we'll see whether or not the advisory group wants to explore that.
Negative.
Well, we'll answer that.
So you had mentioned in your talk that your office had performed a gap analysis as to what are the barriers that your office may be facing in meeting your own maybe metrics that you might have set for yourself. Is that an accurate interpretation of your statement, or?
The gap analysis, I apologize. The question is, what kind of gap analysis did we perform? That was specifically with regards to this question of clean energy finance. And so what we did was look at in the renewable energy and energy efficiency markets in Illinois, in like the commercial sector, the residential sector, and public sector, and industrial. Did I say that one? Anyway, all the different markets. Are there financing tools to get those projects done? And if there aren't, is there some potential role for the state to play? So that's the gap analysis we did. I definitely glossed over that.
I have a question regarding growing the renewable energy market in Illinois. Has your roadmap looked at the impact of requiring meter aggregation to support community solar? Because in 1 year, Minnesota has applications for 900 megawatts.
No, I know. We have been talking about that. I haven't gone through all the comments yet, and so I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure someone has put that on there. But if not, maybe we could accept a late comment, because it's one of those things where we're not supposed to be the ones commenting.
So a question on the water program that you mentioned. You mentioned water treatment as it also cover wastewater treatment?
Yes.
Okay, and then what kind of projects fit into that? Is it full-scale
Process
energy reduction or pilots or what kind of?
Yeah. So the question was about the water program I mentioned and what kinds of projects we do. So originally the water and wastewater treatment program, which is energy efficiency only, just to be clear, it was focused. It could be applied to lots of things, but most of the projects we were getting were lighting. They were, sort of things you would do anywhere. And as I think it was ERC who coined this, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. And so now we're much more focused on process and trying to improve the energy efficiency of processes. And we've gotten a lot of pretty large-scale projects in the last couple of, in this last year and the year before. And we also ran a pilot 2 years ago for combined heat and power. And I believe 2 or 3 of those projects are going to be at wastewater treatment plants.
Other questions here?
I just have a question about the jobs metric, job creation metric that DCEO looks at. Is it, are all jobs kind of in one category? And I guess I ask because there's some jobs that we may be better off not creating. How does DCEO?
Yeah, fair enough. So this is one area that I think I think that our director and the director's office would like us to probably improve. Right now, all of the programs sort of track the jobs numbers differently. We track our jobs numbers based on it's like it's a methodology that DOE created, but it's really not, frankly, it's not very good. And it looks at all jobs. It doesn't look at, like, comparatively what kinds of jobs they are. So.
Other questions? Okay, well, why don't we have you maybe go back a little bit to this negative carbon question?
Oh, sure.
Your negative carbon.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think what was laid out in Paris is going to take more than just installing solar panels and making our buildings more efficient. I think you're absolutely right. And I know the Institute has done a lot of great work in the field of carbon capture and storage, and so I think by all means that's something we need to continue to pursue. I agree. I think it's going to, addressing climate change is going to take everything. So.
Okay, with that, I'd like to thank Molly again for her presentation.